Yes, you've read the title right. I am going to be that guy playing devil's advocate here. If you don't expect too much, you can be hurt. Hello everyone, Azo here. I talk about topics I find interesting or fun related to gacha games. Generally, I talk about less used unit or niche characters, but I love talking about game design, hence this topic. Okay, before I actually talking about everything in this video, you are going to hear this sound a lot. Oh well, throughout the videos from now on. Because of currently, it is summer in my country and god damn it, I cannot record if I don't put any aircon or fans in my record room. I'm toast! Anyway, back to the video. For you who have short attention span thanks to current social media environment, I am going to answer the question or the title here. Yes, but given the track record of Mihoyo, I do not have that much expectation. Yes, this sounds very hypocritical if you have watched my last video. Let me tell you why. If you are an OG Mihoyo fan, you have probably played that game since Fly Me to the Moon or GGC, but I'm not. I am the equivalent of late 90 kids in terms of getting into Mihoyo works, which is to say, I am an Honkai Impact player. I started playing Honkai Impact around 3 or 4 months before HOV was announced. Wait, no, not announced. Released. And ruined Abyss. Then they had to rework Abyss into Direct C. I continued to play the game and got burned out in the final chapter of part 1 because how bloated the story is. I mean, it takes forever to read through. During that time, I have seen Mihoyo has released 7 buffs to 7 characters with the Augment Core system, which is a nice thing to have, if it not for the fact that 2 of which is completely useless in endgame content. 2 of which are decent support, but got power creep the crap out of living their life rather fast. 2 of which are niche physical DPS which favors specific matchup. If I remember correctly, Rosalia is a bit better, leaving only 1 that's thankfully pretty damn good prior to the release of Hersher? I'm just gonna call her Heart because god damn, she is hot! Prior to HOT release, she is the lightning damage dealer, and the best part is, she is free! Since her base form is an A-rank battle suit that everyone already has, all the player have to do is grind for the upgrade material. While she can be really hard to play and optimized, it is nice to have a good free-to-play option considering 1. The endgame content is PvEVP. 2. The gacha for character gears is easily one of the worst among gacha games in the market. The last time they actually bothered to buff all the characters was 4 years ago, which is her. Since then, they had offered a different route, which has been the way they operate until this day. Say it with me now, no direct buff, only buff characters with gear or new characters. With that being said, do I still hope for Star Rail to go into a healthier path with a buff? Yes, why wouldn't I? But I'm not, how do I say this again? Not that hopeful or optimistic about the buff? Senpai, temper no expectation wo kankaete imasu ka? Oh yeah, that word. Thank you, Shinshin. But I tempered my expectation, not only because of my past experience with Honkai Impact 3rd, but also seeing other gacha games that is a Mihoyo IP run things. I word that really poorly. Oh boy. To reiterate myself, I also want to talk about other 2 gacha games that I still actively play of how they future-proof or lessen the impact of power creep. That being Arknights and Punishing Grey Raven. If you are a long-time subscriber to this channel, thank you very much. You probably expect Wuthering Wave 2 Ninja. I'll briefly address Merger near the end of the video since I don't know how I really feel about Whimpering West as of writing the script until this point. Both games are very special to me. Arknight single-handedly changed my perspective about tower defense game. I have never thought tower defense as a genre would be really fun and deep. TGR come at the right time for me. The global version was released during my first Honkai Impact burnout with both gacha and gameplay aspects. I was thinking, why the hell not give it a try? And here I am. I want to talk about these 2 games because they coincidentally have the same method of dealing with fear of missing out when it comes to play or reward. Everyone gets the same reward whether they are F2P or whale. This also applies to endgame content, or the content that give player gacha currency. All players has to do is just play the game or reach the minimum threshold, which everyone can do. This approach turns limited unit or characters into a tool to have fun, not the means to clear the game and get all the reward. And that doesn't even include the specific for each game, which we will get into right now, starting with Arknights. Since everyone knows how tower defense game works, and this is an Arknights review, so I'll just on what matters here. Unlike other tower defense games, you can't span the same tower, characters in this case, and you can't deploy all of your units in the squad at the same time due to one resource: deployment slot. If you run out of deployment slots, you cannot deploy any more of your units until one of your units is either defeated by the enemy or you manually retreat them. Just this core design alone opens so many possibilities for developers to design stage and event gimmick. They can make one group of enemies to go to this box through this path, then make another group of enemies go to another box through a different path. And the player has to be able to adapt to that on the fly, or just study the pathing. If the player are smart with their unit usage and always have some deployment slots available, they'd have a also for deployment. If not, they'd have to retreat one of their units to open up a deployment slot, then deploy another unit to catch or deal with the leaked enemies. And this is just a one aspect of the game. This hasn't taken class into consideration yet. Each class of characters also have subclasses or archetypes, which have a specific role and good for a certain scenario. I mean, sure, some class or subclass is good at every scenario because they can do big great numbers consistently. Doesn't invalidate the existence of other older units of the same role or niche. Because who's going to stop you from using X unit with Y units? Some rando on the internet saying this character is bad, they outdated, or they got power crept? But seriously, if you are new to Arknights, please do not invest in this unit unless you are overflow with resource. She is the only bad unit in this game, as in she has no use cases. Or at least I haven't seen one yet. As you can see, Arknights has 12 squad slots. Unless the stage told you that, hey, this stage condition will reduce your squad size. Generally, you don't have to think about, oh, I have to use these many units or else I can clear the stage. While Arknights looks and plays like tower defense, it actually feels more like a puzzle game than a tower defense, and your tool for solving puzzle is your units. The reason or incentive for any player isn't just, haha, big number go brrrr, or just, it's any game breaking character here, it. This or these characters are good enough to get the job done or solve my current problem is also a valid reason when picking unit for any stage. And of course, this line of thinking can only come to be because of the lack of DPS check. Yeah, I know. What you gonna do? As the skit implied, my last statement isn't true. There is DPS check in Arknights, several of them in fact, but the difference is, player can interact with the DPS check. In Arknights, DPS checks generally come in the form of boss enemy. If they are very tanky, they can be blocked and stalled. If they can be blocked, they will take a long ass pathing and be vulnerable to one type of crowd control. Of course, that's just an example, because every bosses will have different way that players can interact with. Some boss are more bullshit than the others because Hypergrip can't maintain a consistency of the game power level, but my point still stands. Player can interact with every DPS check. Well, most. And because every boss's event, main story stage gimmick is different, they resulted in various scenarios, i.e. it allowed niche units to have a legit use cases. Sure, they might not be as good as the generally good and broken unit, but what matters is you can clear the stage with max HP. Doesn't matter how, as long as you can clear it. Coupled with the fact that Hypergriff designed each stage to be able to clear with all 4-star squad. So there is nothing to stop player from messing around with the niche or just niche units in general. And then there is module system that help other units keep up with the current game state, whether it makes those units deal more damage or give them a new role entirely. Hell, there is a niche night where people pick specific niche and beat the game because they just can and want to challenge themselves. Okay, I think I really had to stop talking about Arknights. I feel like it's getting more and more into a review territory, so let's move on to PGR. PGR doesn't really do anything different from what I've already mentioned around whatever this timestamp. But this is my video and I can talk about whatever I want. And I want to talk about PGR. If you are new to gacha game space back in like 2 or 3 years ago, you probably have never heard of PGR. I mean, it's not like Kuro put that much of an effort into promoting the game, but to sum really shortly, it is Kuro previous work meant to compete with Mihoyo Honkai Impact 3rd. The core gameplay can be summed up as Honkai Impact 3rd, which in itself is a dollar store Bayonetta, with a Candy Crush or any Connect 3 game you can think of. While it doesn't sound fun, but it works really well at that. Players have to improvise their unit skill up on the fly and trigger each character's core passive while in the middle of fast-paced combat. Senpai, skill up wa nan desu ka? Okay, I forgot to introduce you guys to the skill up. In BTR, every unit has 3 main skill and 1 core passive, and these up are the way you use character skill of special move. The more skill up you ping of any color, the more damage will be dealt. So naturally, you want to ping a 3 up of the same color that groups together like this for maximum damage. While skill up is a way to deal damage, the real big PP numbers or buff or whatever you can think of are locked behind core passive, which either can be accessed by picking a certain group of skill up in a particular order, or their core passive have a direct interaction with picking skill up during that time. It's not the greatest combat system ever, but it's a very clever design choice given the hardware limitations. And it's also a nice way to bridge a gap between, let's say, Devil May Cry for Dante God and some pleb like me to be able to do some cool stuff without that much of an effort or very long input string. Since BGR is an action game, there's also a freedom of expression aspect of every player and characters. Sure, it might be not that much compared to, let's say, DMC3 or the first Bayonetta, but I cannot say this finger snapping parry isn't cool. Freedom of expression is one thing. Comfortable gameplay is also another big factor. Some players might find the meta unit isn't as fun as their old units, so they choose to stick with their old reliable. The thing is, regardless of player choice in characters, player never really being punished for playing off meta. Sure, that player might struggle in some hardcore content and get other currency/resources to strengthen their units less than the meta chaser, but if they go with that route, they probably are casual, and what is the most important reward for casual player? That's right, gacha currency, which, as we established, everyone gets it equally. I'm not saying there is no reward for sweat and try hard. There are. One of them is generally a set of strengthening materials, as I mentioned earlier. The other would be something that player can be displayed for flexing, like profile picture, profile frame, nameplate, collectibles for displaying. While this is a section for BTR, this also applies to Arknights too, just to a different extent. And that is how other gacha games that I actively playing avoid or minimize the effect of power creep. The main reason I talk about these 2 games in particular because they just happen to be the game of different genre that coincidentally share the same design philosophy, for the lack of more fitting term. Now I think it is a good time to addressing Wuthering Waves. I'll give it to you now. I don't know what the heck Kuro is cooking or which direction they want to take Main Choushu. It is weird, since I think it's kinda ties with one of the issues that caused drama 3 months ago, as of writing a script and recording, which I'll make a video about it. I admit, my yapping until now is a little excessive relative to the question/video title, but I honestly think just buffing older characters alone isn't going to be enough. It is just a band-aid, a 1 day before expiring band-aid at that. Sure, they can buff older characters and try to future-proof them, but let's be honest here. What or who really is going to stop them from making even more absurd bosses with even more absurd HP inflation for them to shield for the latest broken characters and repeat this whole cycle again? But this time, more characters will need buff because there will be more characters that can't keep up with the game state, so they have to buff the already buffed unit under the condition of they can't make older characters better than the newer one. Then repeat this cycle again and again and again and again until one day it becomes impossible to do anything with the game. It is very absurd to say something along those lines, but as absurd as they sound, this can be one of the very real possibility Star Rail is going. I mean, they have done it multiple times across their IP. By that I mean prioritizing profit over game design. The last augmented core in Honkai Impact 3rd was 4 years ago. They changed Elysian Realm from a fun roguelike game mode where everyone can earn gacha currency into a borderline sweat and chilling game mode for whoever they are selling. They could have put a newest set of Stigmata into a foundry system where player have to do one of the heaviest grinding akin to being a Grand Blue Fantasy slave, but no! They only put the latest power crept or out of meta set into that system and locked the newer, shinier, more OP Stigmata set behind Gacha Wall. They didn't have a second thought to put a punching attack band-aid or a quality of life for exploring behind a Gacha Wall. Ireland should have been the high-risk, high-reward 4-star characters, but no! They still went ahead and nerfed him, turned him to a worst unit in the game because he is 4 stars and 4-star can't compete with 5 stars. I am going to stop myself here because I can see myself in over with this section. Oh god. But what do you think about Mihoyo buffing older characters, or rather the ramification, or what is Mihoyo's next move after release the buff? Let me know in the comment. Anyhow, that's it from me. Thank you so much for bearing with my rambling until this point. I wish you guys to have a good night and a great day ahead of you. I hope to see you again in the next video. Bye bye!